So we've previously talked about the importance of like the design of a space and how it kind of facilitates engagement and whatnot. So if you have like rows where every computer's all facing the front, like a screen, then that's more conducive to like lecture based versus like pods or whatever. Like how was your classroom space set up or open, and how did it kind of facilitate the engagements that you've been describing?
Yeah, so I like this question. So this is like something that I've kind of thought about and written about before. Both of my parents are involved in like interior design in some way. My dad's in construction and my mom did like interior design. So like attention to space is something that like I grew up with, and the sort of like subtle unintended consequences of like how space leads in certain ways. And I bring that into my classroom and just thinking about like what opportunities are available depending on how the room is arranged versus what opportunities aren't. In my ideal classroom, all the computers would be around like a ring around the edge of the room with open space in the middle that sometimes that really could have tables. Tables would be like the best thing to have in there. Then I could facilitate either like unplugged lessons that happen sort of in the middle of the room, or I could facilitate like, pair programming, plugged lessons that happen around the edge of the room, and having the freedom to kind of move between both of those is like my ideal environment in terms of just how that facilitates like lessons and things like that. My classroom was not set up like that. My classroom was set up in like pods and like a very confined space. And because it was so confined, once students sat down, it was hard for them to like get back up. Like the chairs would back into each other. We had a rule where you couldn't like I didn't let them bring their backpacks into the classroom because it literally just took up too much space. Like they would like trip over them and things like that. I had a very defined path of where I could walk in the classroom. That's another really interesting thing. Like when I was becoming a teacher, I had like a mentor who one day watching me teach, all they did was just draw where I moved in the room. And that was so insightful. Like if you ever get the opportunity to have someone do that for you, that's just like you learn so much about like your presence as a teacher of just like what paths you get to and what places you don't get to at all. So because of these classroom limitations, I started to adapt. I invested a lot in creating like these little, like supply stations at the tables for students so that they never needed to stand up. It's like, you didn't bring your pencil with you. Well, there's a pencil in this little box that you can grab. You don't have paper with you and you need some. Well, there's scratch paper in the middle you can grab. You need whiteboards. It's in the middle that you can grab. And I even brought that into like distributing and collecting handouts, which is something that we lose like so much time for. And like, if you add up all the minutes in the classroom, just I'm passing out a paper to every single student, big waste of time. And so I started having like these folders in the middle of my pods where if I knew ahead of time that I need to give them something, I just put however many copies I needed in that folder. And it's like, all right, you're gonna need this handout, open the folder and grab it. There you go. Everyone gets one. Or if I need to collect papers, it's like, all right, put them in the folder. And then I can just like grade them in the folders and put them back. That's like a nice little classroom hack if you have pods and things like that. And so that's sort of like what my space necessitated. But the other big thing that I started to focus on and realize it had to do with my desires to sort of to get as many students as I could in the room. And there are some students who are more inclined to enroll in a computer science course, mainly just like white males. If you let everything fall the way it may, statistically, you're more likely to have a classroom full of white males than you are of anything else. And I didn't want that. I wanted like the students in my classroom to represent the students in my school, which was a lot of like Latinx students and Black students and some Native American students. And so I really wanted that to be part of my classroom. And so in looking up ways that that happens, NC Wit has a lot of like resources behind that. And like Girls Who Code published a report about it. And like Microsoft has like as like a guide where they've gathered a bunch of resources, also mostly from NC Wit, on ways to help do that. And in reading over all those, the biggest thing that I saw was just how impactful it can be for students to see themselves in computer science roles and how to see themselves in the space that they want to move into. When you walk into my room, there's like a wall on the left side as soon as you walk in. And I just started covering that with posters of diverse computer scientists, Black computer scientists, Native computer scientists, Pacific Island computer scientists, and not just computer scientists, just like scientists and mathematicians and just like important folks in general. And so I pulled from like code.org has a set of resources. CSTA just published some posters. CS in San Francisco, CS in SF has like a cultural heritage page that's really great. There's a podcast called Nevertheless that did like this beautiful poster series that's like 8 women that like did all these like great things in like Mae Jemison's on it, who was like the first African-American female astronaut. And so what's cool about those posters is they were just like STEM posters. So there were some computer scientists, but also mathematicians and scientists. And I got my school to make copies of them, multiple copies, and I got them laminated. And then I just gave them to other STEM teachers. It was like, you should put these up in your room too. And I have them in my room, you have them in your room. And like students noticed that all of a sudden there was this better representation showing up on our walls and showing up in our schools. And I have these great pictures of some students just like staring and reading the wall, and all these different posters I had just showing all these different Black computer scientists, Latin American computer scientists, Native computer scientists, and it was very cool.
This excerpt of the CSKA podcast is from episode number 47, which is titled From Matthew McMatherson to Cody McCoderson, an interview with Dan Schneider. You can listen to this full episode, as well as hundreds more, by searching for the CSK8 podcast on your favorite podcast app, or by going to jaredoleary.com.